the post-pandemic situation. What's going to be after when it's all over. So first of all, I would like to ask Erdal to first briefly introduce himself, and then I've got a few questions for you, Erdal, as well. So first question is basically how this pandemic has actually brought in a new perspective to cybersecurity. Second question, we would like to get your insights about what is the boardroom talk, how the shareholders and the board members are taking this pandemic. What are the expectations from the CISOs on this current situation? And the last but not the least, if you can share your insights on current and emerging threats, and what are you looking like, what kind of threats you would be looking after post-pandemic situation? Over to you, Erdal.
I didn't take notes of the questions, but your CEO, your CIO, your CISO, the answer was COVID-19 or Corona. Why? Because like in Pakistan, most of the people, I'm in Dubai at the moment, but coming from Australia, I know everybody is locked at house, and the companies had to urgently switch from being in the office to working at home. And this could be challenging for some companies because not everybody had a laptop. What about people with desktop? Yes, most of the companies have VPN solutions, but what about the bandwidth? What about the licensing? Most of the companies have tools like Zoom, for example, but I think we all know, I mean, I had to install Zoom for this meeting, but we all know the dangers of Zoom itself, right? How Zoom is stealing the credentials, or how at the moment 2.0 days and dark web is sitting against Zoom. So it's brought a new era. I always believe cybersecurity is like human health. How? You know, one little virus can depends on the body. I mean, at the moment, 2 to 3% of the people who get infected with corona is dying, regardless of looking at the age. If you have a secret sickness that you don't know, or if you smoked, or, you know, yeah, I know most of us in this, and most of the people in Pakistan, like Turkey, are Muslim, but we believe in Qadar, we believe God is written to He, but God also gave us a brain. We have to take care. Cybersecurity is the same. Yeah, people assume we are secure out of the box. We always hide behind these beautiful mega words or buzzwords, AI powered, the latest next-gen firewall, ERD, antivirus, but it's like having immunization, right? If you don't plan, the environment will force you to plan, and this is exactly what happened now. The companies, they were agile, they could just work, switch. The other ones, they went to shuffle, but I think Corona, if you look at the positive side for the IT industry, Corona gave us IT people, regardless of you're a developer or security professional or networker or security person, value. Our importance, I mean, first hackers gave us the value. Now, coronavirus gave us the value because we are trying to enable the businesses to continue to run. I don't want to talk, we have beautiful other panels as well. I don't want to take the whole time, but this is the hopefully answer for combined for your questions.
My next question was, what are the boardroom talks? What is the shareholder board members are expecting from the CISOs?
Okay, I'm a regional CISO. I'm not representing the bank here. I just joined as Dr. Ozkaya academic researcher. As some of you know, just like 1 year ago, I used to be a board advisor from Microsoft, cybersecurity architect, visiting many boards, many CISOs, many CIOs, giving advice. Now, I was in Pakistan. I have a beautiful award actually here, which I can probably share from State Bank of Pakistan here.
Yes, that's a good one.
Which I usually try to go and share my insights as well, regardless working for a bank or not. What I'm trying to say here is the board was expecting, of course, to work seamlessly. I mean, honestly, I can see, Mirza, you look like you're still in the office. Mirza, yes? Me being at home, you can see that's my house, one of the room in the house. So regardless where I am, as long as I have my internet, my tools, I can perform my work. Or what I need is a headset, maybe a phone, and that's it. But being in a bank, for example, what about the Swift team? Can they go to home and work as they're in the office? What about the physical security? What about the, just think about doctors, for example, or bus drivers. Can a bus driver work from home? Or can a police work from home? Of course, we have all these different challenges which comes through, but the board is expecting, of course, continuous of the work without affecting people. You saw, I mean, yesterday the petrol prices minus $38. Why? Because they don't have any, not even 1 centimeter place to stock more petrol. Or think about think about the health workers. Now they're working overtime because it's a pandemic. Think about us, honestly. I'm working from home. I don't travel to the office. I don't chat to my colleagues as I am in the office, but believe it or not, I am back to back in the calls all the time. So, of course, the board, the companies, I mean, we as a bank, again, as any other bank, want to ensure that the customers of any bank feeling still secure because, earning money is getting tight these days, but keeping the CIA, your confidentiality, your integrity, your ability, it's still a key, and this is what the board is expecting.
My last question to Erdal is basically, what are the current emerging threats? Since in most of the regions, the cyber threat level has been raised to critical. So in terms of banks, what are your recommendations to this all over the security professionals that what should be done in terms of monitoring, in terms of preventive measures and detective measures?
Social engineering attacks these days are up in the roof. I don't know if you follow me on Twitter or in my blog. If not, I recommend so. Like before December 2019, there were 0 websites based on COVID. Just in end of February, there were more than 12,000 websites registered with COVID. 0 to 12,000 in 2 months. Of course, there are many legitimate websites which gives COVID information, but we all know, I don't have the exact number, most of this, I don't want to say 95% because honestly, I didn't do the calculation, but I bet maybe 99% of this website out of 12,000 is phishing or scamming websites to trick people into. We saw it in bushfires in Australia. Many people opened websites to donate money where hackers attacked this website because there is no ethics when it comes to hackers. Same with this. They really don't care if you earn less money, if you're getting half of your wages, or if you're not getting wages at all. What they care is just themselves. They want to get your money, make them their own. They want to get their account, use the account to attack. And unfortunately, they're using this situation. They're using, the hoax situation. It used to be the Nigerian prince who sends you an email and tells you your cousin and your mother's cousin in Nigeria has died, and I have $250 million, 50 kilos gold. Give me $1,000, I'm going to give you the money. I'm like, hold on, you have $250 million, but you need $1,000 from me. All right, give me $249 million, you keep the $1 million. No. First, you have to give me $1,000. These are still a bit more logical, but today, an email comes, your next known neighbor has been detected as COVID-19. As the building is under quarantine, please click into this link and verify that you're healthy. Oh my God, hold on. I have to just verify that I'm healthy. I hope you see what I'm trying to say. Unfortunately, currently the attack vectors are more to play with our minds. It's like, you know, Ramadan is coming. In Ramadan, everybody, goes prays more. You know, our holy things get a bit more higher. It doesn't matter who you are, right? Or each of us, for our Christian friends or for our Jewish friends, you know, they have their own. You know, in the holiday, you feel a bit more. Yeah, I should pray a bit more. I want to get a bit more hasanat or whatever the religion calls it. Depends on the religion. Unfortunately, in these days, hackers using this to play with our minds to get what they need, what they want.
Thank you, Erdal, for your insights, for your recommendations and valuable feedback. Thank you very much. With that note, I will move forward to Asrar Sahab. Asrar Sahab, if you can, again, I understand basically you have got much more visibility to some underground markets as well and the chatterboxes that are going on there. So if you can just enlighten us basically what's coming next, what do we expect, what's coming next post-pandemic, first thing. Second thing is basically I wanted to ask, how can we further enhance our awareness in terms of internally and externally, both counts, to the internal employees and the external customers? And the last question is, in again current pandemic situation, we predict that, you know, our security projects that we have planned for the rest of the year, it's going to impact it. So what can be done now to, again, keeping in mind the current emerging threats and the risk, what can CISOs do to, overcome those challenges? Over to you, Asrar.
Thank you. I'll start with where Erdal left, sort of when we were, you asked him one question about what will change, what has changed, and then I'll move on to the part where you said what's happening in the dark web and so on and what changes. See, yes, there is now a new term of PC and AC, before Corona and after Corona. And there's a big talk that the world will change after this, and this is completely new. But in my humble view, it's not really a change, it's just acceleration. The change was already happening. The world was already moving through digital transformation. In my talks, which I used to do normally, I will put up the slide which I will show the story of the turtle and the rabbit. And I'll ask the audience who won the race. And everybody says turtle. And I'll tell them no more. It's now the rabbit's time. The turtle will not win anymore. There are short sprints. You have to be very agile and you have to move very fast. And the world is changing completely in terms of digital transformation, even before Corona. But after Corona, it is only that the acceleration has happened. So what we were expecting to happen in the next 10, 15 years, now will happen in next 2-3 years. Okay. I don't know if you are aware or if the audience here are aware of the concept of singularity. Peter Diamandis, he has a university of singularity where the human mind is going to be left behind by machine, and machine will be smarter than humans. That's the point of singularity. And as per that concept, we are going to move to economy of abundance. We will be leaving behind economy of scarcity. So that change is imminent. It will happen. Now it may happen in the next 2-3 years. See, for myself, about 6 years back, I decided I don't want to do any business if I have to leave my office and enter into a premise of a customer. So I shut down all the business which I had where I needed to physically go to somebody's office to do the work. And I started coming up with ideas where I could do things. And that's where I built CTM 360, Cyber Threat Management, and where I came up with the whole concept of digital risk management. Now, having said that, over the last 6 years, I have been flying every week. I've been flying somewhere because people still wanted to see my face. So I would go into some meeting, I'll go in and visit somewhere. But over the last 8 weeks, it has been first time ever that I did not fly. I am at my own home at my office every single day. And I am able to now get to the CXOs, CEOs on a Zoom call, which I used to struggle with before. So
and they love it.
Sure?
I said, and they love it.
Yes.
Please don't come. This is better like this. Thank you. Thank you. I totally agree with you.
Okay. So this change is acceleration of what was expected. Now, how do we see it in terms of what will be the change, or what do you see? The second question of yours was, or the first question to me was on the dark web. It's going to radically change. What needs to be understood is that the whole security industry was really focused on defense in depth. All the technology, although the cloud was there and every push was there, there were a lot of regulations which were making a lot of confusion to go to the cloud especially for the banks or the government or the large corporates, data privacy. All those regulations were being taken care of slowly. Now it will be very fast. Things will change. So you'll need to go to the cloud. Once you go to the cloud, what happens to the concept of defense in depth? Where you had a firewall, an IDS, IPS, your network securities, your endpoint security, which was all in your control inside the organization, which you were managing through most of the time with a SIM on top of it. Will that remain? No, it will have to go. Infrastructure security would not have so much of a place in the future, because once you go into the cloud, there are many things which will change. Like, first of all, systems will be more distributed. Integration will be across cross platforms. It wouldn't be this that you are integrating everything in-house. We already had, like, if you go to the banking, there was the open banking, which was consolidating all the banks. That will become the front window.
Yeah.
The security which you require to do will change, and the skill set which you require as a security professional has to change. How much today in security professionals do they know about containers, about serverless? Now, all of those technologies, the whole security requirements are entirely different. The threat landscape is going to change. Because you mentioned about the part that what will change when we are having this and what kind of threats we will have in the future. We were already facing certain threats, like if people are using, let's say, Google Docs, or they were using Dropbox, or they were using Slack. The whole concept, which people don't understand, is simple terminologies like public. When they were using a software application inside, and they were saying that this document is public, they thought it's only the bank staff which will look at it. But when you are in the cloud and you say public, it means anybody and everybody can see it. And today, so much of the data is exposed because people don't understand how to secure their Amazon bucket. And so on. We can now see so much more data. Suddenly, in the last 3 weeks, so much data leakage is happening. Me, because our organization is doing DRP, I'm hiring people. I have the same customers, but the workload, I would say, has increased by 30 to 50%. Suddenly, there are so many more sources we need to look into. You need to understand the difference which I'm saying. The past was defense in depth and a technology stack inside the company. The future is a lot focus on DRP, digital risk protection. The past is 99% of your money is being spent on on-prem infrastructure security. And digital risk protection, which is really in its infancy today. Even if you go in the world of Gartners and Foresters, they're still trying to put together the right concept. That will be fully accelerated. The budgets will move from defense in depth to DRP. DRP, which today holds maybe 1 to 5% of the budget, will soon be holding 50% of the budget. And that shift, if you want to understand more, you can just Google DRP stack, digital risk protection stack. There is a document on our website which will give you more details on it. I hope I am able to give you some idea or the answer to your question.
Thank you, Sasab. Thank you very much for your insights.
Very good insights.
Now, my next question is to George on, first of all, what kind of demands being generated from your clients in terms of, security and capacity planning as well? Because the things that were planned last year, I hope that has much increased. I'm talking about the bandwidth, I'm talking about the overall health and capacity of the appliances. And the second is basically now that we are basically facing many emerging threats and cyber threats, how could we basically protect our infrastructure against those attacks? If you can just please say a few words about that.
Well, on the first one, the information I have is limited in the sense that this has to be done partially at the operators level, in the sense that the operators of the various country, and each country there's several operators. There is an increased shift in how capacity is being used in a country, in the sense that, or in the past, maybe people were using messaging, email, and others, the occasional video meeting. A lot of the bandwidth has shifted towards Zoom and other video-based events like the one we're holding now. Obviously, this puts a lot of strain on the existing capacity that whatever operators are, ISPs, mobiles, and others. That really means that operators, regardless who they are, they need to have the right policy in place to address this issue. And this really means many things. Maybe do quality of service, do bandwidth throttling, do other measures in terms of, there's even some operators in the States that asked people that were watching movies, obviously entertainment is a good part of being at home, but to decrease the resolution of the movies being delivered. So that means you put less strain on the network infrastructure. So it's not just one element. It's, I think many elements need to come together to actually achieve that. For your second question, one of the things I simply did is I created a short few slide presentation, not a technical one, but kind of trying to highlight what has really changed when we are working remotely. And I'm not here, this is not geared towards the CISO as much, but geared towards the average user that is now kind of has to live from home, and then how they're planning to kind of survive in this mode of working from home. So I applied one of my frameworks to that. So let me just share my screen.
Yeah.
Let's see if this works. I think you have to enable screen. Who is the host? Screen sharing has to be enabled.
Okay.
Okay, let me try again.
Can you please try now?
Okay, let me try next second time. Okay, so let's see if this works.
Perfect.
So I just created a short few slides about how we can use something I created quite a few years ago called the ASICs towards remote work. So in this new world, first this is informative session, so there's nothing, no products being promoted, nothing, just purely, and you have to investigate this further when you get back. So as you work from home, the world has changed a lot. So I think the way we see it, we have to look at it from a bit of a light-hearted approach. So this probably kind of reflects that the way we perform our job is quite different than we used to do it before. Also, a whole new series of threats that were not there before came about. An example was, for example, Zoom bombing. Now, the good thing is that even companies like Zoom have already put in place the countermeasures to, you know, remove this. So now they have check-in areas and all that. So the point is, this is one threat or one risk that gets identified because of this increased risk of work. Other people are, for example, scanning most popular VPNs along with their vulnerabilities. So that means it's not specific to one product, but you need to have countermeasures that are applied. So that really means that everything is really about controlling many things. One is about controlling your connectivity. The way you manage your connectivity in office, where you're behind walls, a more sophisticated firewall, IDS, IPS. When you're at home, you have a low-cost router with limited capabilities and much more vulnerabilities associated with them. So how and what measures you need to put in place to reduce the risks. VPN by itself will not just fix that. So you're also going to be using a multitude of apps that you are not used to before. Zoom is one of them. Others are apps that maybe you run on your desktop or on your mobile. Each one of them has a given sets of risks associated with them. That really means that you, as a responsible person working from home, and the CISO has to update the assumptions associated with operating in this new environment. That means you also need to have new countermeasures or new policies to address the risks associated with them. At the end of the day, you also have to decide, do I use this tool or not? So you have to measure, is the risk of using this tool for this job acceptable or not? Or the benefit that I get from it is better than not using it. That means using things like encryption, authentication, two-factor, one-time passwords, and many others. One thing that is always important about cybersecurity, the problem is not what you see, is what you don't see, because the big risks lie really underneath the covers. This also means that if you're serious about it, you have to continuously update your awareness. So you need to go back and get maybe a refresher on your security awareness session. There's plenty of sources for this to help you get updated or up-to-date skills. I think in modern cybersecurity, the most important resource is time. So you need to identify that you're either being hacked and how quickly you can respond to that. So that really means that you need to have the elements in place to do protection, detection, response. Mirza just highlighted some of the things that he's doing himself, but really the point is trying to help address this aspect of being more agile and basically reducing the operational risk. So you focus your resources to diminish the operational risk. A few years ago, I created something called the A6, which really is a very simple framework that is non-technology specific, that highlights really how you can basically introduce more mature controls, diminish your operational risk, and each of the A's really stands for something: assess, architect, apply, administer, awareness, and agility. Now, if we take this A6 and we apply it to work at home concept, there's some key elements that you need to take care. One is maybe do a remote vulnerability test or review the risks associated with working remotely. Maybe you need to select practical and simple controls like one-time passwords or turning better encryption on your router or using a better VPN. Then you need to take these controls and implement them along with any other privacy elements that you need to put in place. No cybersecurity is going to help you if you do not review the error messages that are being put by your cybersecurity systems. Whether it's the vulnerability testing, whether it's your antivirus system, whether it's your login mechanism, they all generate messages, even when you log into Google or others. So you need to review those and then take the appropriate actions. Patch your operating system, whether on the desktop or the app or the mobile, etc. Get the latest news. And finally, I think you need to be agile to respond. Many people have, as a backup, but have they tested that the backup actually works? Probably very few have not. So that really means it's not when the disaster happens that you're going to be necessarily in the position to respond. And at home, you have much more limited resources to do so. The last thought I want to leave you is that if you're really in the business of cybersecurity like we are, the job is never finished. So security is a continuous skilled process that requires thought and attention to detail. So you need to continuously refresh your knowledge and update your controls to diminish the operational risk. So this is my short review for you to try to highlight how we can help you do a better job as you work remotely from home.
Thank you.
Thank you, George, for your valuable insights. I would just like to get back to Asrar Baig for just one thing. Yes, we have got many methods, awareness campaigns. Organizations send out bulletins. We have got banners. We send emails. But in this situation where our 50 to 60% of the workforce is actually working from home, so through fresh pair of eyes, what can be done more to further enhance our awareness campaigns in every institutions?
Okay. In fact, George was mentioning something on that track on the security awareness side. What has to happen is, because the driver of human incentive is the personal one, first one. So we need to come up with some security awareness which is not being given to the staff from the perspective of work, rather perspective of their personal safety and their family's safety. If you gear the program towards that, because they will be more of a target now. Whatever they need to practice is nothing new. It is something which, as an organization, even your organization would already be doing so. But the only thing was that message is lost because prevention is not what people are focused on. But suddenly we have this environment where prevention has become top of the agenda. So we can use that and then use the incentive of the human personal safety and then give them courses or create short videos or clips for educating them on how to be more digitally secure. And then giving them some sort of a news feed regularly. Now they will read on it.
Absolutely.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it absolutely does, because we have been in some forums where they are saying this pandemic may continue till September. There are basically some chat going on around the world. So if that continues till September, so you means next, let's say 4 months will be, 50-60% of the staff will be working remotely. So it's essentially very important to drive the new ways of the campaigns. As you mentioned, maybe introduce a mobile app or something, maybe introduce some sort of games or something that gives us a message of the security awareness, something like that, and include simulation, phishing simulations as well. So rightly pointed out.
Yeah, all these are there. All these have been there from a long time. I spent a lot of time on this side, but the biggest challenge was people are not engaging on it. Now we are hoping they will engage on it. By the way, irrespective of the pandemic being there up to September or up to next year or finishes within a month, things will change. Now you have been pushed into digital transformation much faster.
Thank you, sir.
Exactly.
Your mic is mute, Ali.
Oh, sorry, my bad. So thank you, Asrar, for your valuable feedback again. And I would like to ask Ahrar if he's here. Briefly introduce himself first, and then I've got a couple of questions for Asrar. First of all, again, how do we protect our infrastructure using the next generation or latest frameworks, first of all? Second question to Ahrar is, how do basically we protect our organizations from the emerging APT attacks? And I believe you have been involved in compromise assessments as well for the various banks. So how do you look at it? And the last thing is basically, what enhancements CISO needs to take on, on the side of the monitoring, where the SOC is in place and we do vulnerability penetration testings and compromise assessments. So what can be done further in terms of current emerging threats and APT attacks as well?
Okay, thank you. Thanks for having me here first. And so I'll introduce myself briefly. I head EBRYX. So we essentially got three parts to our business. We are a cybersecurity R&D organization. We offer R&D services to cybersecurity tech companies, primarily network security, malware research. So a lot of malware signatures that go into some of the network security products, they come from us. Then we have a MSSP division where we do SOC monitoring, incident response, and forensic services. And we have a product division of our own where we are working on a product in the zero trust network access space. So I'll talk about these things in with the perspective that I have from these three angles. So firstly, the question about next-gen frameworks. So before this incident, before this whole COVID pandemic, we have been evangelizing a few things, and there have been a few things that have been kind of in the works. And as Asrar said, this pandemic would accelerate a few things where there were certain things that are expected to evolve in the security space. He pointed to the cloud, the direction of the cloud. And that's there's a related to that essentially is the deperimeterization. Another way to put it is that your enterprise is deperimeterized. It's no longer a building with a LAN or a set of buildings with a LAN with all the people working inside. It's people working from home. Your assets are in the cloud, managed by maybe a third party. So the whole notion, these drivers have actually been behind certain initiatives. So for example, the Cloud Security Alliance has had this initiative of a software-defined perimeter. They came out with a spec about 6 years ago, came out with another one. There has been similar notions. Gartner has its own term called Zero Trust Network Access. And recently NIST came out with its own document on Zero Trust architecture. So the whole notion of Zero Trust is strongly tied to deperimeterization. So because the notion of a perimeter essentially meant that you trust things inside it and you don't trust things outside it. And your firewall typically defined the boundary between the two. So there's the notion of an intrinsic trust zone, which is the zone behind your firewall. And that is no longer true. And before this whole pandemic, the reason people gave for that was that even if you're working inside the office, you and your entire staff is inside, once some staff member gets compromised through an email or some other social engineering attack, or you have a malicious insider, the rest of your so now you have a predator or an attacker in a relatively less strongly defended environment because all your defenses were facing outward. And so then they can wreak havoc, right? They do lateral movement, they go to the price assets, they steal stuff. And so that's the whole kill chain that executes. So there had been this whole advocacy happening of adopting a mindset in which a mindset of zero trust, where you don't trust things inside your LAN. And so ironically, the thing is that things that would have worked well in that context are now exactly the things that would help us going forward when people are in fact working from home. And as you said, half of your people or more would be working from home. And there are projections, like you said, the pandemic could last. For us, it's kind of still heading towards a peak. We don't know when it will start coming down. And even in the countries where it started sooner, it's still expected to take 1.5 to 2 years before, and who knows by then what sort of work habit people would have adopted. People are already noticing the advantages of, your reduced petrol consumption, the positive effects on the climate. So if people can work from home, then why tax the environment and take health risks? So this could well last longer, and people, all over would be prompted to think about how to work not in an ad hoc manner, but in by design, work securely in this sort of an environment. So right now what's happening is that people are essentially just making do. People are managing with VPNs, legacy technologies. In fact, right now, if you look at our local environment, where we were kind of a bit behind on the digital banking side. So right now, there's in order to remain commercially viable and continue to do business, I think even before security, the banks are and other fintech companies are essentially rushing to push out their fintech offers and the online and app, the app-based banking options. So the first threat would probably be, one area to look at is how secure these are. Are your apps, protected from reverse engineering and a lot of other attacks that have to do with the mobile side. But another front is the VPN and the remote work from home side. And that's where I think the zero trust architecture really helps, because essentially, and there are products, there have been products in this space for a few years now, and they're maturing. Can you hear me? Am I?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, you're audible.
Because your screen was frozen, so I was wondering maybe you have a connection issue. So the thing is that so if I were to describe what this is that you imagine that the firewall has now moved to your endpoint and to every asset that you're trying to protect. And now, instead of having a bus or a LAN segment sort of a connectivity with things that you maybe are not required to access, you have point-to-point connections, and you only get them when you need them. And so there's no notion of an open TCP port listening for people to connect to it and then maybe DDoS it, or get authenticated after actually having exposed the TCP port, and you connect and then you authenticate later. That whole notion of authenticating after a connection would also, I think, eventually go away. So right now, I think the things that people should look at, that's what I encourage, is to look at the risks of a VPN. VPNs have well-known problems with being overly permissive, not being strongly tied to the origin, and not essentially being a dynamic or on-demand micro-segmentation technology. So from the endpoint, I think that's one of the things that would probably have to be looked at. And I encourage people who are responsible for IT environments, whether those be accessing your on-prem, your data centers, or cloud, you need to have robust endpoint-based controls where you have strong device admission control. You look at the security posture of the endpoint itself. Does it have the right protection? Does it have the right patch levels? If you want data loss protection, does it have that? And then you let it access your prized assets, right? So that's one area. And generally, not just from a VPN evolution standpoint, but generally your focus in a zero trust environment is essentially because your endpoint is essentially in hostile environment. Now somebody's at home or working from a coffee shop, maybe no longer, but somewhere that is not as protected as your internal enterprise used to be. And so you have to beef up the security controls that you would assume that would not be required. So things like, you know, a lot of, in our region, again, a lot of companies are on the old legacy antivirus and EDR adoption, I think, is something that's picking up. And I think that trend would accelerate the longer this mode continues. And I think we'll probably see increasing adoption of data protection or data loss protection, especially from the endpoint. And I think email security, and you know, that's it's not strongly tied to this work from home notion, but since that's still the largest attack vector, and since now the user is kind of off on his own, you may see that there'll be more attention to more robust email protections. So that's kind of my thoughts on a few kind of the high hitters on the next gen things, and we can talk a bit more about zero trust if we need to, but people again can Google it. ZTNA, there was a good study from Gartner in April last year on zero trust network access, and then NIST's, I said, zero trust access. I think the thing that I would like to see is that our security practitioners, and not only them, but our IT CIOs and people in charge of the IT infrastructure in particular need to look at it, because what we come across is that the security side understands it, but the implementation of this is essentially in the hands of the IT organizations, and it's important for them to get it. And I think part of what we need to do is educate them.
Absolutely, hopefully this pandemic situation will make the technology guys understand a bit more to them as well. And as you said, rightly said, we need to have that, security measures on infrastructure as well, due to VPN, remote access, a lot of other things. And I've spoken to some of our friends globally. There are some actually companies who have been granting VPN accesses to their personal devices as well. So there's a concept of BYOD as well. So at some point we might need to consider it as well. I haven't seen much around it in local industry, but globally I've seen it actually. The large companies, they are actually giving VPN accesses to the personal devices. With that note, I would like to go next to Saboor. Saboor, if you can just briefly introduce yourself first, and then tell us basically what's been happening in the Middle East market, and you have been providing a lot of services to Middle East clients as well. So what's happening there? What are the regulators saying on this current pandemic situation? And my last question to you, and as well as whoever needs to contribute in from our panelists: do CISOs need to go back and visit their cybersecurity strategy after this pandemic situation? Is there a need for that or not? Please go ahead.
Thank you, Ali. Okay, first of all, I would introduce myself. I've been in information security since 2019. I've been working throughout in Saudi Arabia all my life, and I've had the privilege to work with very good names in the market, enterprises, SMEs, throughout different sectors, and banking and healthcare and government. Unfortunately, we're all going through this pandemic crisis, and the whole dilemma, the whole dynamics of the technological implementations have changed. Before, when we used to talk to, I remember back in 2004, when we used to talk to different clients and try to convince their top management saying, you need to have a teleworking policy. They used to say, why do we need it? Now, when you go to the same people and say, I need to come and work from the office, they ask you, why do you need to do that? We already have remote connections available, and the configurations, the whole implementation have changed. The way, the perspective people used to think on as a business user, they need to protect their people, because people is one of the top 3 pillars, the foundation pillars of cybersecurity. However, we're all connected through technology. Recently, things have come up that more than 500,000 websites were registered on Google that were created or registered on the basis of, conducting different sort of attacks. There has been a 350% rise in cyber attacks using phishing and social engineering techniques. What people are doing is people are looking for information. People are connected on their networks. And moreover, when we used to connect through our offices, we were confidently, getting secured through our enterprise controls, implemented throughout the enterprise networks that we use to connect with. Now we're connected through our poor little modems, DSL routers, 4G devices, and whatever that we have. These are more prone to attacks because the implementation of controls are minimum as they can be. If you're a tech savvy person, you would log into your router, make the required changes, implement the right level of encryption and whatsoever, and try to secure yourself. However, let's say 80% plus users would not be doing that. They would rely still on their enterprise networks to secure their connection. Now, when we're talking about information, there's a lot of hype and there's a lot of research everyone is doing to see what cure COVID has right now, how we can keep our families secure from this disease. We go through different channels, different websites, different portals, find links, click them. We found the cure. You click that link and you unfortunately get infected. Now, when we talk from a cyber offensive side, there are either server-based attacks or client-based attacks. Now, there's a high rise on the attacks happening and trying to exploit the vulnerabilities and weaknesses within your systems, be it a mobile device, a tablet, or laptops. So, and we as CSAP, Cybersecurity Alliance Pakistan, we've been publishing and broadcasting different advisories to different people because we thought it's very important to talk to people and tell them what are the do's and don'ts during this lockdown when we're working remotely. So we suggest keeping our systems updated at all times, keeping your patches up to date at all times. Try not to use any cracked applications if we were in the past. Try using the licensed applications, because if you're using a cracked application, there's a very high possibility that the author or the publisher of that application might have had a backdoor connected through that application, from which he's trying to access your data and compromising whatever that they're looking for. There's a lot that we have spoken about in the recent sessions when we talk about the VPN connections, the right configurations that we should have. There's a very big debate on what and how we should have implemented. Now, when we come back to coming to your next question on what's happening in Middle East, we've had the leverage, and we're still working with a lot of financial sector clients in Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, and Dubai. When I talk about regulations, there are more than 4 regulations within the same country that I live in, and I've been busy talking to different clients, CROs, CISOs, seeing what they're doing now. Because let's say the 150 controls that they were having a strategy to implement, and halfway through everything is closed down. So what they're doing now, how are they talking to different people in their organization? How are they rolling out the awareness programs? How are they managing the assets? How are they controlling the access from a unified angle and perspective? So we've had a discussion with many CISOs in the market, and people are trying to recover from the dilemma that they're not able to implement the same way they used to implement. Now, however, the basics, the governance, the risk management and compliance would remain the same. But when we talk about operational security, when we talk about the development environments, there are major changes that are happening there. We recently conducted webinars, discussing extensively the API security, because one of our members was officially acknowledged in OWASP last year. So, and the threats coming from the API side are very high now, because every application now needs to talk to other applications or portals on, throughout the WWW, World Wide Web. Applications are connected due to the requirement of automation, flexibility, scalability, and then on top of this, there's a layer of orchestration that requires all of these technologies to talk to each other without human intervention, or as minimum as it can be. Now, when we do this, there's a requirement to extensively review the logs. SOCs are talking to your systems, your monitoring systems, and then on the back end you have incident management teams catering all these requirements and trying to find out whether this log means we are under an attack. And the challenge being that all this highly classified information, how you should be flowing it. Earlier, we used to have, DFIR labs or, forensic labs within the enterprises that I was working with. Now, most of the access has to be given to external parties or within their own teams remotely. Now, the main challenge was how to securely transfer that data or provide an insight to your consultant or engineer to have the right level of access to your data to conduct the analysis. So there has been a lot of changes, and people are worried about compliance because, let's say more than half of the implementations are going to have a change. When we talk about governance, mostly it's going to be we shall do this, we shall not do that. But when you talk about the implementation of these controls, in terms of IT security, things are changing. People have been relying more on technology and trying to cater the access, availability of data, and integrity. But having said that, it's a complete cycle, and it's a complete different perspective of the top management now that they're thinking to secure their employees, be it from the coronavirus, COVID-19, or any cyber attack that are emerging now. And see, when such disasters happen and chaos commences, there's a very big opportunity for the the evil-minded people to start making use of this situation. So and it happens at a matter of click. Now, we being the end user of technology and accessing data from different enterprises, we should be well aware. And which is why, CSAP is trying to send out multiple advisors to different people talking on different topics, having your, we used to have something called clean desk policy, and we still require that because, not because of confidentiality, but, the loss of data. So in any case, there is a lot that we can talk about. I wouldn't be taking a lot of time now because, we're almost 1 hour plus now. We are in touch with our users, with our members. We have around 7 chapters throughout the globe. We're trying to talk to different people. We're growing teams. We're conducting different sessions. The upcoming sessions we have planned. We have a session on DevSecOps, because a lot of development in this region is going on in different sectors, and people have recently started integrating security as part of their operations and development environments. So there's a lot of traction happening on this area as well, and coming up front, we're also going to be talking about, during Ramadan, we're also going to be talking about the data protection bill that has recently been published in Pakistan. We'll be announcing all these, and we would be in touch with all of you. Thank you all for joining. Thank you, Ahrar, Baig, Asrar, all the speakers that have joined and shed light, provided very valuable insights. We look forward to have you with us for more sessions, and keep learning from you guys, because you guys are the leaders and we need to hear your perspective.
Thank you, sir. Really appreciate you having us.
Thank you all.
I would like just to open, if anybody will, just one question from the audience, if anybody wants to ask. Any question from the audience? Just one question, please. We'll wrap up the session then.
I think our panelists were very clear in the first place. So
I think the message has been delivered to all.
delivered.
Thank you, all the panelists. Thank you for all the audience and participants joining us. And we shall be engaging more on different topics, inshallah. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you. Take care.